Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another session of Behind the Lavalava. On tonight's crew, we're joined by Johnny, the new chairman of marketing and media for the Pacific Island Chamber of Commerce out here in Utah. Our president, Mr. Michael Tan, a young, aspiring podcaster, fellow Uso, Alamateo. And we have a very special guest tonight who's very humble and honorable in blessing us with his time. And speaking of time, tonight's episode is brought to you by Matai Watches, the first ever brand to represent the Pacific, the people of the Pacific. You got Rolexes and all those other watches that I can't pronounce, luxury watches that cost an arm and a leg. And what do they celebrate? Nothing but your bank account going down. Let's celebrate our history and our heritage by purchasing one of these Matai watches. Get your Matai watch at behindthelavalava.merch.com or at Matai Watches. You also got the Super Bowl coming up. They have bands to either rep your Chiefs, nice red bands, or green bands to rep your Eagles. All right, now let's get into it. Let me introduce tonight's guest. He's a Farrington High School alumni, University of Hawaii alumni, Stand Up 808. Hey, he's an inductee of the Farrington High School Hall of Fame, the State of Hawaii Hall of Fame, the University of Hawaii Hall of Honor, 4-time Super Bowl champ, 2-time Pro Bowler. But let's put an asterisk next to that because great coach, legendary coach Bill Walsh, he dubbed this man the greatest offensive line coach of his time. Bob McKettrick, offensive line coach Bob McKettrick, said that this man was the best technician and most fundamentally sound lineman he had ever coached, and that he would have been selected to 9 or 10 Pro Bowls if they didn't move him all over the offensive line. He's also co-founder and inductee of the Polynesian Football Hall of Fame. Hey, without further ado and me ranting, everybody welcome the champ. I got to call him and address him as Mr. Jesse Sapolu. Hey, welcome, Mr. Jesse.
Thank you, Mil. Thank you, Mil, thank you guys for having me on. You know, I'm always proud of our young Polynesians that aspire to make a difference in our community. And I want to thank Behind the Lavalava for the opportunity to come on and shoot the breeze with you guys, man. You know, I look at you guys like my younger brothers and, I admire what you guys are doing and keep up the great work.
Hey, we appreciate that so much. We appreciate you so much. But before we go any further, what we like to do here is Mr. Michael Tan likes to open things up, get things going with a little icebreaker questions. So I'll go ahead and kick it over to Michael.
So our icebreaker question for today is, what's the most adventurous thing you've ever done? And we'll go around the room and I'll start it off. I think the most adventurous thing I've done in my life, I'm going to say alleged a lot of times because I don't want to get in trouble for this. So I was allegedly on a Marine Corps base in Okinawa, Japan, and I would allegedly sneak off base by either going under the fences or jumping over the fences of the military base. So remember, it is allegedly, so I hope nothing bad happens to me like over 10 years later. So that's something that's adventurous for me. We went out with a couple of people and we did some drag racing in the streets of Okinawa.
All right, I can hop in on that one. I think the most adventurous thing I've ever done was we were deployed in Iraq, and just to say I did it, hopped out of a turret and went number 2 out in the middle of the desert. It was really scary. Yeah, because I had the rifle down, took all the flak jacket, Kevlar off and everything, and just out in the middle of nowhere, and we're just looking around like, this is the time in the movie where you get shot in the back. But yeah, everything went fine, and I came back. Had a cool story that nobody wants to hear about. Pretty adventurous. aside from all the other stuff. But that's one I like to. It's a little bit more fun than the other stuff.
I guess mine's military related as well. And I don't know if you really call it adventurous because, I was told to go that way, but jungle warfare training out in Okinawa, I'm definitely scared of heights. I hate heights so much. And you got to do what they call hasty rappelling. And so you're not just, dropping down regularly. You're pretty much running down rocks while just holding onto a cable. And the training cliff, we've already seen 2 people fall and tumble on the way down. And but luckily I got past that one. But there were 8 other cliffs that the difficulty got higher with each one. And I probably fell down about 7 out of 8 of those cliffs. Broke my wrist, but got the Corman treatment afterwards, just Motrin and changed my socks. But I'm still fine to this day. But man, that was something scary.
I guess it's my turn. Okay, so I think the most adventurous thing I ever done. I don't know. I grew up LDS. I went on an LDS mission. I went to the Micronesian islands. I went to an archipelago of islands called Chuuk, and very offset from the rest of the world, very third world. You can imagine as a boy who grew up here in Utah, going to a place like that, kind of learning how islanders really live was really a humbling experience for me. And one day I had a Palangi companion, and it was our rest day, and he said, "Hey, let's go get these handmade crafts that they make." And I was like, okay. I'm thinking it was going to be like a 10-minute walk. This 10-minute walk turned out to be like a 2-hour hike up this mountain to get to this craft lady that crafts all these things by hand. And the most adventurous part was I got to the top of the mountain, and the lady offered us water. And I drank the water without asking her if it was clean water. So I got a bunch of like parasites, and I got really sick, and I lost like 30 pounds. But the funny thing was we got up there thinking we're gonna share the arts and crafts we're gonna buy. And my companion, the Palangi kid, he bought like 8 of the 10 artifacts, and I only got to buy 2. So I had 2.5 hours to get 2 little artifacts like that. And ended up getting sick and losing a bunch of weight. So I think that's the most adventurous thing I've ever done.
Are you telling me diet plan is to go to the Chuuk Islands in Micronesia and drink water? I'll lose 30 pounds like that?
It's the secret.
You just got to go to Mexico City for that.
Same thing.
Well, I guess for me, gosh, so many. But, back in the day, they used to take the top 4 teams from the NFL and go overseas and add an extra preseason game. So we used to play 5 preseason games. And, I played in Japan twice, London twice, Barcelona. But the trip that I think that I kind of remember from the history standpoint was when we went to Berlin in Germany, because we all grew up watching, when Carl Lewis became the guy that won 4 gold medals. They always talk about Jesse Owens, and the history of Jesse Owens is he's the guy that Hitler refused to shake his hand in the Olympic Stadium. Well, guess what? I grew up with like this little snotty-nosed kid in Samoa reading a little bit of that stuff, and all of a sudden it's like overnight, I'm standing in that stadium, getting ready to play the Chicago Bears in a preseason game. But they showed us where Hitler sat. They showed us where Jesse Owens, won the 100 and won 4 gold medals. The great thing about that story is that the main street that's outside the Olympic Stadium is now Jesse Owens' way. So it just goes to show you how far we've come, and it connects to what you guys have done, because when we practice in Germany, the security guys were our army soldiers. And, and right away I was in practice. I saw about 3 Samoans, just walking around, and, during certain breaks, they would say, Jess, I'm like, wow, I feel right at home in Berlin now, So we had a chance to go and had a barbecue with the sergeant and of course the guys that were stationed there. It was a pleasant trip from that standpoint. And then at that time when we played there, they just knocked down the Berlin Wall. So, as a matter of factly, I said, hey man, I would love to take back, part of that wall if I can. Man, the next day they came to practice with a backpack full of the wall and the metal already stuck in the wall. I mean, still stuck in the cement. And these are the days when I could take that stuff on a flight, before 9/11, right? But that was a very historic trip for me because, you grew up in Samoa not knowing where your life is going to be. And then all of a sudden, you're right in the middle of what that history is. When you talk about Hitler, that man is still talked about today. And for me to actually play in a stadium that all those events happened, no question was a blessing because it doesn't happen by accident. It's a blessing, and I'm always thankful about that. Had a great time with our sumo wrestlers in Japan, but I think that the Germany story is a little bit more historic for me.
Hey, that's amazing. So the reason why I just want to go back a little bit, I have to address you as Mr. Sapolu is because, a lot of us, we grow up in the church, no matter the religion, the Samoan, the youth are involved in sports, whether football, volleyball, basketball, this and that. And you always got the uncles mentioning names, telling you things of legend, passing things on. So like I was telling Mr. Ray Sefo on our other episode, just like you, I knew your name, before I knew you. Like there was you, there's Mark Tuine and Junior Seau, names like that, rest in love to those guys. But I was able to look up to names like you guys before I even got to see you on TV and behold that. So I carry that feeling with me. I can't get past that feeling as a kid. Like, oh man, these are men that I want to be like, or, strive to be able to have my name passed along like theirs. So that's why I got to put that title in front. But here on Behind the Lavalava, we like to go behind the Lavalava, and we like to ask you we like to honor our parents and kind of ask you to talk a little about your parents or who raised you and what village they're from, sort of your childhood.
Yeah, my parents were ministers, so I grew up in a church. They called it La Mosa. So I was born in the village of Tuamua, and Apia was in Samoa. But that's where I was born because my dad was a minister there. But my roots are from Sabai in Sapali'i, and that's my mom's side. And Satolpai is my dad's side in Sabai. And then we have a side in Upolu, Payala, and Lufi, two of the villages that my roots are from. But my mom was actually, because her parents were in the ministry, and they were ministers in Manua, and she was born in the village of Olosenga, and because my mom was born in Olosenga, that allowed us to have our green cards and our visas to come to America, because, I grew up in independent Samoa. It was Western Samoa at the time. So for the longest time, even though my mom was born in Manua, I was known as the kid that grew up in Upolu and came to the States and did well in football. And but I came to Los Angeles for a year and a half. I started playing flag football at a park in Carson, very popular park called Scott Park, and is named after a Samoan man named James Foisia. That's the name of the park now. Well, James is my first cousin, and he's the one that, because when I came from Samoa, I couldn't speak a word of English, maybe hi, bye. But, obviously when you come from Samoa, you're nervous going to school because you can't speak a word of English. But my athletic ability kind of helped speed that up a little bit because kids started befriending you because you started learning how to play basketball in the playgrounds. And then when I played flag football, That's the joke right now. I played running back. Play running back with flag football. I was pretty fast for my age, but obviously, as you start climbing up in competition, they start pushing you to the front, and all of a sudden, I'm an offensive lineman now. But played flag football for about a year and a half, and then because my parents were in the ministry, they got called to Hawaii to become ministers there, and then we moved to Hawaii when I was in the 5th grade, and I grew up in Hawaii all the way till my senior year at the University of Hawaii. I had a chance to go to Michigan State or Oregon, but, you have to imagine our parents at the time, in the late 70s, early 80s, just going from Hawaii to California is like going to Afghanistan back in the day. The worry of your parents letting a 18-year-old go. So my mom didn't want me to go to my first choice was Arizona State. But my mom, at the last minute, we listened to our parents, wanted me to stay home and play football at the University of Hawaii. So I was there, and then I got drafted in the 83 draft. That's considered still probably the very best draft in history. The year I came out, we had 6 quarterbacks went in the first round. Jim Kelly, John Elway was the first one picked, Dan Marino. We had Eason. We had a lot of guys. I played in the Hula Bowl with Eric Dickerson, who was a great running back, Hall of Famer. But we had some talent in that draft. So I got drafted in 83 to the Niners, and I was the very last pick. So in those days, there were 12 rounds. Right now, we only have 7, but we had 12 rounds. So I knew, and then they roomed me with Roger Craig during training camp. And, there's the thing with the NFL is if you're going to get cut, they send what we call the Turk to knock on your door to bring your playbook if you're going to get cut. And I knew if there was going to be a knock on our door, it wasn't going to be for Roger Craig because he was the first pick. It was going to be for me. So I fought my butt off to make sure there was no knock on that door. And the funny thing about it is I outlasted everybody in my draft class, including Roger Craig. Because Roger finished with the Raiders. I think he played 13 years, and I was able to put in 15. So humble beginnings. And we have a quarterback right now that we call Mr. Irrelevant, and Brock Purdy. And we have a dinner here in Orange County. We have a dinner here. It's called a Mr. Irrelevant dinner. So the 49ers call me to go speak at that dinner. It's kind of like a roast. And we give them gifts. We talk about watches. We give them watches, a surfboard with his name on it. They have a little parade for him. It's kind of like a production, but they call it Mr. Irrelevant Week. So I went there and I'm like, look, man, you're Mr. Irrelevant, but you got picked in the 7th round. I'm the real Mr. Irrelevant, I was an 11th round pick, but not knowing that this kid was going to work out for us, because at the end of my speech with Brock, I said, if I can win 4 Super Bowls as an 11th round draft choice, you can win 4 Super Bowls as a 7th round draft choice. I said that. Did I believe it? Yeah, but I didn't expect it to come to fruition this fast. But it's all good for us. So, we hope that he's not seriously hurt, because I think he's the guy that can carry us for the next 10 years.
So, Jesse, how was that meeting him? Like, how does he carry himself? Because I'm a huge Niner fan. My dad's a huge Niner fan. I'm like I'm in Niner land right now. I'm so happy to be here when I found out you were coming on. But how was it? Like, how was it meeting him? How was it kind of being in the ambience of kind of like that Niner ambience? Because I've never been to a game or anything, but I've been a fan since I was a little boy. So, like, how was that?
Well, when I spoke at the dinner, right after he got picked, we had the dinner like 3 weeks later. How the dinner's set up is it's just not Niners there. They got guys from the Rams, guys from the Raiders. It's kind of like a roast, right? So some of the former players from the Raiders went up and said, Brock, just smoke a cigarette when you go for the first drill, because he ain't going to make it. That kind of thing, right? So I was the last one that they picked to come up, because obviously I was representing the Niners. And I'm like, I'm not going to roast this guy, because what if this guy could be somebody special for us? I said, this is a little personal for me. I got to encourage him, but very humble kid. And because of the roast, the dad came up to my wife and I after the dinner and thanked me for being positive with him, because the other guys were hard on him, man. I mean, one year, the Mr. Irrelevant, I've spoken there maybe 3 or 4 times over the years. And one year remember when Norm Chow was coaching with Pete Carroll here in SC, when SC had that run with Matt Leinart and those guys. So, me and Norm Chow would go and speak at the Mr. Irrelevant. Kennedy Pola, who also was coaching at SC, I did it with him a few times. It's a fun event, but because he was a Niner guy, I try to make sure that I was positive with him. But real humble kid and stoic, just like the way he played the game, because he came in, because we were all up there when we played 2 on them, when Miami came in, is when Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt. And when Jimmy got hurt, you can just feel the air come out of the balloon a little bit, But I saw him in preseason, and he beat out a real good backup guy that we had. So the positives that I saw in preseason was that he can move around back there and very calm back there. So that's as far as I knew. But when Miami started blitzing him, and I mean, threw the kitchen sink at him right early when he first came in, and he looked them in the eye, and they threw to George Kittle for like a 17-yard gain when he was 3rd and 9. I just said to myself, we might have something here. And thank God we're starting to find out that we do have something. We're just concerned with his health right now. But very, very humble kid.
So, Jesse, did you have any family traditions or rituals that you had when you were little growing up that you still like practice to this day?
Well,
any traditions or rituals?
The traditions is, people don't understand. We used to have prayer service in the morning, like at 6 in the morning, right? You're getting hit over the pillow, hit over the head with the pillow, wake up, boom, and then your grandma's singing the hymn, and then you have prayers in the morning and mandatory prayers late afternoon, before dinner. How we do it now with our kids and my sisters and their kids is we do a Zoom once a week of prayer service so that we can see each other, especially when we were going through COVID. That was so important for us to stay in touch that way. So we do that in a more technology way compared to the old school. But those are some of the rituals that I still keep. My kids, the thing that I tell people that I'm most proud of, more than my 4 Super Bowl rings, and this is the honest truth, is that my 4 kids are all college graduates. Football for me, yeah, I got 4 rings, but I knew I was pretty good at it, right? I didn't know what kind of father I was going to be. And you worry when you have 3 boys, the chances are one of them might go a separate way and give me a hard time. Well, one kind of did, but we brought him back, and he went to college, played, got his degree, and now he's an investigator. He was a deputy for about 10 years, and now he's an investigator. But you always have a child that kind of challenges you with his opinions. But I'm really, really old Samoan school, old school Samoan, that him trying to explain himself to me is kind of disrespectful. But I've adjusted a little bit too as a father, because I know we live in America. But I try not to let go of the roots and foundation of that upbringing, because there's no doubt in my mind that I wouldn't be sitting here if I didn't lean on that upbringing that my parents had of me. And there were times, I would think back and I say, man, why is that Palangi kid so lucky? Why they're so lucky they get to go and do this and do that. But when you become a parent, you realize that your parents did that out of love, and a lot of people call it abuse. But for us in the old Samoan way, it's out of love. So I've adjusted a little bit. I'm not as hard on them as my parents was on me, but there's no doubt in my mind that I wouldn't be sitting here with that upbringing to lean on.
That's what I was going to lean into after, was like, I know a lot of us come from Polynesian households, and what you were saying about when you came here to the States, about the Polynesian kid, I was the same way. When I first got to Utah, I was in ninth grade, going into high school. I came from Samoa, and the first interaction in a classroom setting, I seen a Polynesian kid. The teacher asked him to do something, and then he talked back, and it was like with cuss words and everything. And to me, it was like I was sitting in the back, like, nothing ever happened. I thought the kid was going to get beat up or slapped or anything like that, like how it was in my school in Samoa, but it was different. And then the teacher just went quiet and sat down, and I'm like, and it was a huge culture shock for me. And I didn't understand at all. And so, like, growing into it, as I got more accustomed to stateside and how things are done here, a lot has changed. And then, obviously I adjusted, cleaned my English up a lot, speak really well now. But then, I started having kids myself, and then now I'm raising them, and then you hit the whole conundrum of whether to go strictly the Samoan way, you either raise with the belt or you raise with words, like how the Polynesians do it. And you try to find a happy medium. And I know you kind of touched on it with, you didn't want to go too hard on your kids with the discipline. We call it discipline. So I think the Samoan word for discipline is sasa. But so were you overly Samoan or kind of like a mixed hybrid while raising your kids, especially in Oceanside, where there's influences all over the place? You get a mixed breed of everything down there. So I was like, did while raising your own kids, did you strictly stay Samoan, or did you kind of blend the two between using your words? I have girls, and these things are they're very emotional creatures. So like, I find myself that when they were little, the harsh discipline worked for a bit, but now that they're getting to their teenage phase, the words impact them more. They have a greater impact, especially when it comes from me as the father figure. My girls look up to me a lot. So when I say something, especially if it's in a harsh tone, it really hurts their feelings. So I gotta try to moderate stuff like that. So, what do you still use proverbs now that they're adults, or do you more kind of like be their friend?
Well, now they make fun of me. Because, our oldest is 39, and thank God it's the girl that was the oldest. Then we got three boys they're all in their 30s now. The youngest one is 30. That's a O-line coach at the University of Hawaii. But like they kind of joke with me now because they remember how they were brought up. But and when we joke around here, when they bring their kids to our house, my wife always reminds the other two boys of the pitching wedge that my son, that's now an investigator, visits with every now and then. I would go and pull my pitching wedge out of my bag. Now, I know not to use the head of the club, but I use the handle of the club, So I was Samoan in my way of upbringing. Now, that being said, I played in the NFL. I've seen how modern America, life is. And there was a lot that I didn't like, it's different cultures, and I wanted to raise my kids a certain way. But, I was more reasonable with my kids in the fact that I would sit down with them and communicate in a way where they get to see why I took a certain stand. Back in Samoa, they just beat you, and then they found out later they were wrong, and they never apologized.
They usually take you out for ice cream after, like,
right. When they find out they were wrong, how they bring you back into the fold and said, ask him if he's hungry. And then you come in and you're still crying because you got welts all over your legs, and they said, oh, sorry, son, you should have said that this is what happened and this is what happened. But I've adjusted myself, no doubt, to kind of hone my craft as a father, because we live in America. but at the same time, not let go of the roots and foundations of my beliefs. And that's faith, respect and humility from the culture, and respect your family, because they need to understand that our family name is very, very important. So those are the basic foundations of how I raised them. But so when they come here, all they talk about is it's either how I cheat on the golf course or remind each other of how I used to beat them. There's certain scenarios where, I had to step up and do my duties as a Samoan father. Now, my kids also growing up, because of what I did for a living, they grew up in some areas, like some gated areas where they experienced a little bit of, we moved in and there's an older white old man that walks by the garage and asks them what they're doing in the garage. But the thing that my wife and I did was teach them not to be victims, teach them to overcome. And that, to me, that's the conservative part of my Samoan upbringing is don't use excuses. If our family is experiencing that, then, because as soon as those people found out who I was and what I did for a living, man, the attitude changes. But we already see the true colors, but you can't take it personal. You just got to do your best to show those people that, hey, you can't do that. You can't do that. We whether we're Polynesians or we're black or, we have its potential just like anybody else to do well in life so we can live in this area, So we try to be encouraging. And the very one of, we laugh about it. The very one of our kids that always complains about those things is the one that's a deputy now. So he gets to see a lot of different things on an everyday basis. And obviously with what was going on in our country, it wasn't easy for a minority family that has a son that's a deputy to not worry every night, when things were going bad. So, and that's what helps us with our Samoan upbringing when we have the Zoom, our prayer service once a week, so our whole family can pray for my son. But now that he's an investigator, I'm glad he's in plain clothes now instead of patrolling. So, but we pray for everybody. And as soon as I saw who you guys were, you guys were veterans and right away, I'm like, you guys are out there servicing and protecting this country to give people like me an opportunity to come from Samoa to the land of opportunity and earn a living, and my son in his own way is also servicing our community. So like I said, right away, when I heard you guys are veterans, I'm like, okay, I'm going to reach back because you guys deserve it, So, but yeah.
Well, we appreciate that. That's really nice. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
I know I speak for the crowd here. And a lot of us, we do it it's volunteer. Whatever our reasons are, we all volunteer. But we're grateful for it. We're grateful for the appreciation. It is nice to be recognized. I know a lot of us, especially the Samoan side, where we try to stay humble about it. I don't go around and say like, hey, did you thank me for my, no, it's just, we did it. We were young, we did it, but we still appreciate when people thank us. Yeah, that's just what I was saying. I'm sorry.
Well, that answer that you gave me is typical Samoan, right? Just so shy to acknowledge, right, what you guys did during your commitment to the military. But you have to look at how we look at things. We don't think that, like when I go on flights, the veterans are called in the beginning to board the plane. Those kind of things is the very least that we could do. We're not doing it to openly thank you, but we do it because we feel in our hearts you guys deserve it. Because there's no crowd cheering for you, and sometimes I've spoken at different bases, like Fort Lewis up in Seattle, up in Tacoma. And there was one here that I spoke at here out there by Barstow. And I've said it. I've said, it's almost kind of embarrassing for people to look at us as heroes because I was doing what I love to do. It's just that the game of football brings a lot of emotions that get people excited. Yeah, human beings, when they become emotional, they become excited. But at the same time, let's not get it confused with reality of life. We're not heroes. We're just great athletes that are earning a living doing what we love to do. So I'm very thankful of what you guys are doing.
Well, I remember you had said about I actually like that, especially with the Polynesian community. I know a lot of us. There's a lot of Samoans in the military. For a lot of us in American Samoa, that was for the kids who weren't smart enough to get a scholarship, or kids who weren't good at sports to get a scholarship. That was another way for them to succeed or help pay for school or whatnot, or to just basically get off the island and get some life experience. Was they either joined the Army, Air Force, the military. I kind of would have fell in that boat, but I joined the military out of Utah. But it was like the thing I always loved about it, because I've met not a lot, but I've met a lot of quite a few Polynesian people that have excelled in the wider world, and I think it's always amazing that like when you're explaining in Germany, you're out in Germany playing a sport where the media and the world is your experience is a lot bigger. You've seen a lot more. You're dealing with factions that hold a lot of power, influence, authority, and money. And then you see a bunch of random soldiers from Samoa, and they're like, Belly. And then you're like, hey, see if you can get me some of that wall. And it's like that. The interaction is like that, especially among us Samoans. It doesn't matter how big you are. There's a lot of candid shots of The Rock walking around, and he sees another Samoan, and he's like, hey, what's up? He'll just go over and say hi. Same thing with Fiji, J-Boog, all of these other that are becoming more mainstream, but you're never too big for your own people. And I always, admire that and appreciate about you guys. The fact that, with the camps with Alima and over there at the football camps, the outreach, the programs provided for our Polynesian youth, the camps in American Samoa. I know you guys go down there for recruiting as well. When Choi Polamalu came down for his camp too, all of that, giving back to the community, to the island, to the people, it's very well received. And, we are grateful for that too. We do our part to do what we need to do, but we're grateful as well. So I know that with a Google search, we can pull up a lot of information about you, your career, birthplace, high school stats, and stuff like that. What is something that the world doesn't know about? Something about you, anything. It could be anything that, most people don't know about you. Maybe it's a weird hobby that you kind of keep secret. Maybe you collect Pokemon cards or something.
My son that's a coach at University of Hawaii used to be a Pokemon card lover back in the day, but I'm glad you're old enough to remember that stuff. But for me, I think it was 2004. ESPN was doing a documentary on Pisa Tino Samoa, who grew up in Oceanside, the streets of Oceanside, great athlete, and Isaac Sopoanga grew up in the boonies of American Samoa. And what ESPN wanted to do is how did a kid of Samoa grew up in a completely different atmosphere, and one in a country where barely a paved road goes to his village. How did they end up in the National Football League? So they were doing that project for about a year and a half. Right? I didn't know about the project that they were doing, but the very last thing they wanted to do was to film the only living king at that time, which was the head of state of Samoa, Malietoa. He was alive at that time in 2004. So, they were doing this thing for a year and a half, and then they called Samoa. They called up the parliament and the prime minister, who, Tulepo was still the prime minister back then. And they told them what they wanted to do. And they said, well, the only American football that's popular, player that's popular here is Jesse Sapolu. So, because I visited Independent Samoa after I win Super Bowl sometimes, just to go and give goodies to the kids, back in the day. But so they called me, like 2 weeks before their trip. Hey, Jess, we want to go and film Pisa and Isaac with King Malietoa. And we asked them, and you're the only well-known guy there. Is there a way you can go with us? I'm like, I can try to, adjust my schedule, but, my wife's going to, let me go unless you take her. And then they said, okay, we'll take her. And then I said, my son that's a coach at UH was young at the time. I said, well, we have a 8-year-old. We can't just leave him home. So, well, we'll take him too, right? The ESPN, right? Just coming up with. So when we got there, I was just sitting there thinking, they're going to film Isaac and Pisa kneeling in front of Malietoa, and Malietoa is just going to give his blessing. That's what ESPN wanted to film. But after they did that, the high chief that speaks on behalf of the old man was talking. I can speak Samoan fluent. Was talking in a chiefly dialect, and he was saying that the old man wanted to bestow one of his chief titles on me. I understood that. My wife had no idea what was going on. She was sitting in the back row with the other ladies. And I'm like, so every time I won a Super Bowl, my family, either my mom's side or my dad's side, wants me to come to Samoa and have a Matai title to represent the family, because they're proud of you winning Super Bowls and stuff like that. But my mom says, no, he's a minister's son. He'll never be a high chief. That was my mom's excuse, right? But at that time, when the chief said on behalf of the old man, of the head of state, they wanted to bestow a title on me, the prime minister straight out asked, well, what's the answer? And the funny thing about it is I can't run from there. So I accepted so I have my chief title is Sayuli. And the funny thing about it is I was Sayuli 9 months before the wedding came down with Gus Hanneman, and he got his Sayuli 9 months later. So we have the same title. So a lot of people, if you Google it, you'll see it, you see it, but it's not something that I use Sayuli with my job with the Niners, because my sister said, why don't you change your name to Sayuli officially when you go work for the Niners? I said, because the check that the Niners sent to me has no Sayuli on it. So, but I'm very honored for that, for the old man, bestowing that on me. And then of course we went and did the cover ceremony, right? And I whispered to my wife, I said, how much pocket money did you bring with you? My wife is half Samoan, so she understands, but not that deeply. She's not deeply rooted in understanding what's going on. She had no idea. Okay, we're not going to buy a lot of stuff because we got to spend our pocket money on giving gifts to the chiefs that are going to be there at the Ava ceremony. Because once they bestow a title on you, they do an Ava ceremony. And I told ESPN, I said, you guys take care of the gift for the head of state. I'll take care of the high chiefs. So that's something that a lot of people don't know. But I'm one that takes pride in learning my culture. I speak fluently. I can carry myself with the chief dialect. So that's why Troy loves me. He calls me uncle, because I went on his trips. And Big Ale Mateo can tell you, because we were all on the trip. So back in the day, in the early mid 80s, when I used to travel, I was the young guy. We had Jack Thompson, Mosi Tatupu, Manu Tuiasosopo. Those guys were older. So when we used to go on trips, they used to appoint a talking chief to represent us from outside. So when we go to functions, there's a talking chief that talks on our behalf. And then as I got older and then I got that title, they said when we had the function at what they call the Whanilau Mei in Utule, they said, Jess, we have a talking chief that's going to speak on behalf of you guys tonight. Mind you, there were people at the camp. We had a football camp earlier that day that were calling me by my chief title. Maybe 3 or 4 people that knew. But the thing in the Samoa is, if people find out and you just stay quiet, it's a waste. They look at you as, and they probably do look at me anyways as, oh, he got it because he's a Super Bowl champion, and that's the reason why the old man bestowed him the title. But as soon as I heard people call me by Sayuli at the football camp we had at the stadium, I knew I can't just sit quietly because there's people that know. So I told Mel Purcell, who was at the time was coordinating the dinner. I said, no, I'll speak on our behalf. And he goes, what? I said, yeah, I'll speak on our behalf tonight. And people the respect that they had for us all of a sudden just kind of went, they all look at us as these athletes with money. They kind of measure you, are they going to come here and show off and do all this stuff? That kind of showed them the type of respect, because it's actually someone that actually played in the NFL and hasn't forgotten his culture. So from that day on, Troy would call me for for every little thing, to go with him and do this and do that. And that's my role now. I'm Uncle Jesse to these guys. And, when Talanoa and I posted a picture and I call him nephew, he calls me uncle. There were some Samoans. So he's my nephew too then. Because they all know that Talanoa is Tongan, but it's a term of endearment of the respect that we have for one another as Polynesians. And, I've accepted that role to be a voice of wisdom to our younger brothers, because they're making unbelievable money right now. We have a Samoan kid from Waianae that's making $21 million playing for the Indianapolis Colts that used to play for the Niners, DeForest Buckner. I'm like, he makes more in that 1 year than I made in my 15, But we can complain all we want about being born too early, but that's the way life is. But my role is to make sure that if they need something, that I'm there as an ear to give them the best advice that I can for our kids.
There we go, listeners. Uncle Jesse Sapolu gained the honor of Seuli before Uncle Rock. So going back on documentaries, you have an upcoming documentary on Pacific Roots called Polynesia's Football Journey. Could you give us a sneak peek or maybe a promotion of what it is about?
Well, we have one. The young lady's name is, she has roots in Utah. It's Talia Tomalatai Thompson. She studied journalism, and she approached me. But the people that were her teachers or her instructors in college, I'm very familiar with them from Northern California because they were the media when I was playing. So they were very credible people. And then I talked to the Niners about letting her come to the game and interview some people. Not only did the Niners let her come, did we open up the museum for just her and the media people that she had. And then I called Goodell's office with a lady that I used to do a lot of stuff, promotional stuff in Hawaii when the Pro Bowl was in Hawaii. And that lady gave her the okay, which if you're going to use the shield, you're looking at millions of dollars just to have just to have the right to film. They can bring their own cameras and film their own footage. I mean, I couldn't believe that they opened the doors for her. So when that opened up, they interviewed Alema. She's interviewed over 100, I would say 120 something people for this documentary. And of course, I'm the point of it because of being the chairman of the Polynesian Football Hall of Fame. Of course, she went to Troy's house and filmed him there. Uncle Kennedy, that's, with the Raiders. But we got over 100 guys. And I guess Talanoa, when they went there, Talanoa trains with Troy in the off season. And they caught Talanoa, just happened to, typical Polynesian. Okay, we're going to catch two birds with one stone. Talanoa's here. We're going to, and the young lady said to me, he said, Uncle, when Talanoa walked in and Troy asked him to come and interview with us, and Talanoa asked, Uncle Troy, what is this? And Troy said, oh, that's the last dance of Polynesian football, which is a hell of a compliment considering, for him saying something like that. But not that we're saying that's what it is, but it's a project that she's been working on for over 2 years. She's doing a nice job. I know there's a lot of people that have asked her, like Netflix and Disney, but it's I told her, you choose. You started this thing. I help you and guide you along, but you choose what's best. because she was afraid that, now that the project is getting pretty big, that a lot of other people that are more experienced, they can come over and take it over. So, let's pray for her. It's a pretty good project that she's doing, and it should be closing soon and coming out.
Well, a shout out to Leah. She's actually from our ward. Her parents go to our ward.
Oh, that
from
okay.
out here in Utah. Yeah, she's a remarkable young lady. She comes from a good family. Her parents are really nice people. They actually own a restaurant out here in Layton, Utah. But crap, I forgot the name of this. It's like a Hawaiian barbecue style restaurant. Yeah, edit this out. It's off of Main Street, right across the street from Northridge High School, on a Hillfield Road. But it's out there in Layton. Their parents have owned that restaurant for a while now. Yeah, but they're nice people. Yeah, big size. That's what it's called, big size. Yeah, so her mom and dad.
Good to know. When I come to Utah, I will text Talia, hey.
Yeah, brother and sister Thompson. I remember her mom was telling us about this last year. But yeah, they're very nice people. Yeah, they had a restaurant. I think she graduated high school, went to college, and then she served a mission and came back, and then she was telling us about this project. Her mom was telling us about this project. It was pretty neat. So the ward was trying to support her through it. But yeah, we'll pray for her, definitely. I thought it would be done by now, but I didn't know it was still in the works. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, it's still in the works. And the thing that's important to me is I don't want it to come out as this is better than any other documentary that we've done. It's just focused on all these football players and the people that contributed to the game, like Ale Mateo and how he started off Poly. We even had people that Scott Park back in the day with Big John Manumaleuna. So they're interviewing parts of that family. It's she's taking the time to do all that stuff. She travels with a crew, but I don't want it to come across because of the Hall of Fame and all this stuff that it's something that is better than all the other documentaries. It's just something that will help people understand us more. Now that we have a high school game that's on the NFL Network, and we kind of push that through because, I told people when I played in the NFL, there were 6 of us by the time I retired. Sometimes we go to 8 and we'll come back to 6. We go down to 4, we'll come back up. Now we're close to 100 Polynesians in the National Football League. So we're starting to make a real dent. So we have a voice when you call the NFL office, they say, these guys, they represent us well and they carry a little weight and we better pay attention to them a little bit.
Yeah, it's always nice to see them give back. I know just recently, Frankie Lou went back to his old elementary school in American Samoa. He tried to sneak in for a visit and, do a little donation to the school. But, yeah, somebody told somebody else, and, Samoa's small. So once it catches wind, it's a wildfire, and then everybody does the whole thing. But it's pretty neat, And the humility shown by the culture and the people has been absolutely it's amazing. So I think you just keep going, keep doing it, and we'll eventually get a voice.
Yep.
Uncle Jesse, I don't know if I should call you uncle or mister, but I'm just going to call you uncle.
No, call me uncle, man. Call me uncle.
I was really inspired by players like you growing up. And I'm sure, and like I said, my dad was a big Niners fan, but what he really infused into me was kind of adapting to the Samoan culture here in America, because he had a very similar story to you. He came from Samoa to the States, and I kind of wanted to voice my appreciation for, players like you, like Se'ao, and all these Polynesian players that really blazed the trail for us young Polynesian athletes now. Now a lot of Polynesians are very known and very recognized in the league and college. They're some of the most exceptional athletes out there. And it was something that I appreciated growing up as an athlete as well. And I'm sure my cousin, who's, probably very well known to you, my cousin Matsai. And my question is, how did you guys, did you ever have were you ever obligated to kind of kind of blaze that trail for us younger Polynesian kids when you were in the league, or like did you ever feel like any kind of responsibility to, show us that what you did is very possible and very, very doable?
Great question. Yes, I felt that, and I think we probably felt it more then when there was only about 6 of us. Now, when I think we're close to 90 guys, give and take, that are in the National Football League, and we got hundreds and hundreds in college. They probably feel like the weight of that responsibility is a little lighter now, right? Because when I played with the 49ers, I was the only one. Manu was with me for a year and a half when we first won our second Super Bowl together. But, so during the off season, right? During the off season, when the blacks have their functions, they got a lot of people to choose from, right? But when the Samoans or the Hawaiians or when they have, their functions, I was the only guy. And I had to be careful just going from place to place to try to fulfill all of those requests and not trained properly. Because at the end of the day, the reason why they want me to come and be a positive role model is because I play football. So that was number one. So it was challenging. It was challenging from that standpoint. But I knew that there was a heavy responsibility that came with it. And part of that responsibility, and I'm still nervous about it today, I don't want to jinx our kids, but, it was even easier when I played compared to the kids now. Nowadays, they breathe out of the wrong nostril. They'll be on social media. Somebody will write something bad about them. Back in the day, if a 49er has a DUI, the sheriffs would all come to the camp. They lecture the guy, tell him, hey, you got to be smart. You don't have that opportunity anymore. And that's what makes me nervous about our kids, because the more numbers we have, obviously we are human beings that one of them tend to slip. But the one thing that I am confident about is that our kids, Polynesian kids, have that respect and humility. If they're going to make a mistake, it's not because they're cocky or, they want to, go out and beat up people because they want to be, hey, you know who I am. I think that's kind of not the first instinct that we have, because we're a culture of warriors, but we're humble warriors, because of our upbringing. I'm confident from that standpoint, but man, now that we have a lot of numbers, including college, I'm always nervous, that one of our kids could get in trouble, which eventually somebody will, but we're trying to work on some of the guys that just retired, Troy would help a lot. Tomata Peko, those kind of guys can step up and be a voice of wisdom to these kids, because like anything else, once they get in trouble, you're looking at losing a career that can pay you $4 to $5 million a year. But yeah, I get nervous about that stuff, but it is what it is. And all we can do is pray for our kids to do well.
So I have a question that applies mainly for coaching. So Milford here, he coaches basketball, but I like to coach my daughter's flag football. And I just want to see what your mindset is when you're coaching these kids. Because for me, I do get impatient when the kids don't listen. They just do their own thing. Because I'm coaching 8-year-olds. This year I'll be coaching 9-year-olds. But I want to pick on your brains on what's your mindset for not getting frustrated at these kids when you're coaching them?
Well, I think there's a little bit of a different mindset according to the age group that you're coaching. I think it's very important for the 8, 9, 10-year-olds for you not to just give in to everything that they want because of their age. I think you can be firm, but at the same time, like when I was coaching high school, when I retired, when my kids were playing, I always try to finish whatever sentence, even if I'm scolding the kid, I always try to finish with a positive tone. Like instead of saying, hey, you ain't worth it, you're not good. I would scold them, and then I said, you know what? I'm telling you this because I know you can do it. or this is what I expect from you because I know you could do it. You always leave that I know you could do it or you can do it so that when they go home, they feel good about themselves. Because, back in the day, I didn't even know what mental issues were. We kept it all inside because we're going to get more spanking. But now I think society is more open to discussing things, and I have to be careful too because of my old school ways of thinking, oh, we're getting soft, because there are real issues. But at the same time, when you're coaching the kids at the age group that you're coaching, don't just be super soft, be firm, but always have that fatherly, because I know you can do it. That's why I know you can do it. Then they get to go home and say, coach was hard on me today, but because he says he believes I can do it. So that those little things I think is important. And then patience is a big thing at that age group too.
Yeah, thank you. Because I'm pretty firm because I'm coaching Parangi kids along with my daughter, and I can see when I'm watching other coaches, they're speaking softly, telling them plays, and the kids end up doing something other than the play being told to them, and my wife keeps telling me, stop yelling at these kids. But to me, it's not yelling. I'm trying to prepare them and for what's coming up next, the levels, being yelled at by their coaches. But I think it's mostly me just raising my voices at them and trying to tell them what to do when the field is pretty loud, all these distractions. But what do you think? How does being an athlete make you a better individual from your experience?
I think the advantage that athletes have over, a student that hasn't played sports is that we're being yelled at. We've been yelled at. We learn to overcome adversity. Like you said, I mean, there are times when, you just totally thinking, man, this coach doesn't like me. He just doesn't like me, But it's not until years later, like Bill Walsh and I, oh my gosh, he was so hard on me, my first 4 or 5 years because I was an 11th round draft choice, right? Some of the things he said, in Samoan, I'm like, man, I feel like choking this old man, But my relationship with him as my career went on, and then when I retired, and I mentioned that in one of the things that I wrote in my book is that when I came home, Bill was retired, I just retired, and my wife said, "Oh, coach called." I'm thinking, "Coach?" I said, "Coach who?" She goes, "Coach Walsh called." I said, "Ooh, for what?" Because my expectation is he's always yelling to correct something, right? He said, "He just called to say that he loves you." And I had to sit down. I sat down in the living room for about 5 minutes, trying to keep from being emotional, to know that man loved me all along. And at the times when I felt like I said, I felt like choking him, there's a reason I'm sitting at home with 4 Super Bowl rings. There's a reason. And I believe that. But I think, like you said, you can be hard on them, but as long as you send them home with a little positive reinforcement that this is the reason why I'm hard, because I believe in you, I think that makes a big difference in how you can communicate as a coach. So, we have a son that's a coach too, and hope that I try to stay away from him as much as I can because I don't want to be an overbearing father. But every now and then I share my opinion.
Yeah, patience is key, man. It's easy to forget that they don't possess, the IQ that comes with experience, and just be like, why? But then, it humbles you too when you see them react. But man, I love it. As exhausting as it is, it's great to see them. Kids, especially my kids, high school kids who've never done, either they've never done or they have minimal experience in organized sports, just to see him pick up and gain that confidence, because
Yep.
it's amazing. But so you spoke on being an athlete and being a father, and especially, just being open with your way and how you saw things, which I think is very valuable. And I don't think is out there really much with other Polynesian athletes yet, speaking on fatherhood. But one thing I think that's very important that we should highlight is that, 15-year career in the NFL, but also your marriage and your relationship with your wife. Do you have any advice for younger players, or just, mainly younger players and just younger men in there, keeping their marriage strong and prioritizing, that union between, husband and wife to keep that family unit strong?
Well, great question. And I'm not going to lie. It's probably the most difficult industry to go through married life in your 20s and your 30s. I grew up with 3 sisters. I'm the only boy, and imagine 3 older sisters, and every time they get mad at you, they call you how ugly you are, and no girl's ever going to want to be with you. That's just part of being siblings, right? So, of course, we talk about mental issue. You swallow it, but it stays with you, that insecurity, like it always comes up. Oh, yeah, when something good happens or some girl's smiling at you, you're thinking, oh, but my sister says, it's in here. It's just a matter of how you're able to maneuver it as an adult. Now, when you become a professional athlete and you're one of the very few, I'm the only Polynesian that was on the team, there were a lot of temptations. There were a lot of temptations, especially if you were the team, and because all of a sudden, you walk out of the stadium and girls that you don't expect to smile at you are smiling, and you're looking around and, is it me? So it was challenging from that standpoint. But at the same time, you have to understand that the roots and foundations of who my parents brought me up to be was the fear of the Lord, and how our family is a family of faith, to try to maneuver through that stuff. Because, yeah, we didn't make the money that they make now, but we made a lot of money considering the times that we played. So you combine money, fame, you go to restaurants and you never pay for anything, especially if you win the Super Bowl. And we went back to back, for a couple of years. And then money, the fame, the free food, you go to places, they give you things for free. It's a disastrous waiting to happen if you don't go back to the roots and foundation of who you are. You become out of touch with who you really are, because it's very easy to say to yourself, I don't need my Samoa. I don't need it. Why? I got enough money to take care of my family, my parents, my kids. The kids now, they can say, I got enough money to take care of my grandkids and my grandkids' grandkids. So the temptation is that. I mean, the devil works in a lot of different mysterious ways, whispering in your ear. But the thing that I really loved about my Samoan upbringing, those lectures that your parents sat you down or was hard on you and even call you names to try to get you to do the right thing. It whispers to your ear. It whispers to you in those situations. Because I've gone to nightclubs in Hawaii. I've gone to nightclubs and people come with bottles of cocaine with their little swab, assuming it was their assumption that I was taking cocaine because I lived in that industry, and all I was thinking about, and I knew those people that were handing me the stuff. All I was thinking about is, hey, remember when your mom said this, when your dad said this, you take a little sniff of that, your last name will be everything that they put into you, the prayers that they prayed for you will go out the window if you make that mistake. So that's why I'm a true believer in my Samoa, the old way of upbringing, because I was challenged in that industry. I was challenged many times, not only from, women, drugs, alcohol, all that stuff. You have to try to maneuver the best you can. And there's no question in my mind that the hard upbringing that my parents raised me with played a big role, knock on wood, in staying, and the other thing is not only with my family, it's my people. If Jesse Sapolu gets drunk and goes out there and kills someone, driving a car, the regular person, you will not see it in the newspaper, but because of who I am, it'll be all over the place. And that makes Samoa look bad and everything that our culture stands for. So all of that responsibility is in the back of your mind because of the upbringing that I was brought up with my parents and my culture. And of course, the faith that we believe, we're people of faith. So, and that's why I raised my kids the same way, except that I adjusted a few things,
I really like that, because I know sometimes here in America, it's very easy for, Samoan kids like myself. I'm super young. I'm just 24, and my dad is, he raised us in the way he saw fit, which is very similar to I'm guessing you, Jesse, and I'm a product of an interracial marriage. So those two clashing cultures were something I dealt with as well, getting brought up here in America. But as well as that's one thing my dad always taught me was always remember who you are, always remember who your people are, who your family is, because it's not just me, it's my parents, it's my grandparents, it's, the village that my grandpa is from. And like, it's not just me, it's my mom, it's the town she's from, she's from a small farming town in Arizona, just 1,000 people where she grew up. So I think one thing that, I want to raise my kids up to understand is who they are and who they come from, because there's very strong examples of great men, great women on both of my sides, and a lot of the distractions, a lot of the temptations of the devil, they really try to demean you and make you less of a person. And I think grasping onto who you are and what your parents taught you is, I don't know, it's one of the most important things to me. So I really like that you touched on that.
Thank you. Yeah.
So Jesse, aside from football, what other sports do you love to play? I know Johnny here loves to golf. Do you have any other sports that you play?
Well, honestly, my first love was basketball coming up. I used to wear those white socks all the way up to my knees, thinking that I was going to be the next, but like I said, when I played at Scott Park, I was one of the best running backs in flag football. And then as I got up to 230 pounds, I realized maybe my body's not a basketball player. And then, because back then 250 was really big in high school back in the late 70s. So, and I was 250 and there was just no way, I was going to run around a basketball. Now I played high school basketball, but there's no way I was going to go to college and try it. My future was in football. But yeah, I love basketball. Golf, I took it up towards the end of my football career. And I tell my wife all the time, thank God I didn't take it up earlier, because I don't know if I would have lasted 15 years. Because 5 hours on the golf course is a long time that takes away a big amount of your time during the day. And that league, you better work out hard, because there's a kid in New York that wants that center spot or that offensive line spot. And that, but I love our kids now because the training is a little bit different now. They have what we call OTAs, compared to when I was coming up, we just had too many camps, but you pretty much worked out on your own. But now they get paid to work out now. They get paid to work out now.
Yeah. And I don't know much about the Polynesian Pro Hall of Fame. Could you elaborate on that? I have a general idea of what it is, but could you tell us, for the listeners, what it is?
Well, we used to go to Samoa in the late 90s to do what we call the June Jones Goodwill Mission. We went for about 4 or 5, maybe 6 years. We would take like medical supplies, like x-ray machines, different that's donated to us, and then we take it for the hospital. And at the same time, we would take college coaches and some athletes to go and do camps. During those 5-year period, we would ride around in the school buses to go from school to school to do assemblies. And we were always talking. June Jones would ask, you guys know who the first Polynesian was to ever play? And then we found out, at that time, it was El Lolotai, 1947. I mean, think about that. The 49ers first team was 1946, and yet we had a Polynesian that's played in the league in 1947. So, and then June just said, I mean, you guys are getting to the point where you need to honor those who came even way before you, Jess, because we can't forget about them, because these kids are now about to make a whole bunch of money, which he was like, he's right. But so, we're on the bus talking about it, and I'm thinking, well, it's a big project, man. I don't want to lead this because it's going to take up a lot of my time, but the great thing about it, my job with the Niners is during the off season, I probably worked 4 days a month. So it gave me a lot of free time to travel and meet with sponsors. We met with Lavelle Edwards when he was alive, Ron McBride, Dick Vermeil, all the people that knows history of Polynesian football, because Dick Vermeil was coaching all these great Polynesians at UCLA back in the day. So we started building from that standpoint. So the first 2-3 years, it was just the Hall of Fame to honor a class each year. So the first couple of years we had 5, guys go in, 5 or 6. And then now we're down to 3, obviously, because we had to go way back and try to honor those. In fact, Manti Te'o just went in this year in this year's class. So because his resume in college was really, really strong, because there was only one defensive player that ever won the Heisman, and that's Woodson, that used to play for the Raiders. Well, Manti was the closest to him, to ever do it. So, and he played long enough in the NFL that his resume or his credentials were really good for him to go in at this point. But we have a committee of 10 that recommends the top 20. And then all the inductees, the guys that are Hall of Famers, we get to vote for the top 3 or 4 out of that 10. And so we did that for 3 years. And then we started what we call the Polynesian Bowl. So the Polynesian Bowl now, the biggest 2 All-Star games back then was the Army All-Star game that was in San Antonio, the Army All-American, and Under Armour. Well, so we started streaming the first couple of years. And how we do the Polynesian Bowl is 50. We got to have at least 51% of the game. You got to be of Polynesian ancestry. The other 49 allows us to go out and get the very top non-Polynesian players. You're talking about kids that are going to be in the NFL in 3 to 4 years, right? To bring them and play in Hawaii. Now, the first year it cost us a lot of money because we had no television contract or anything. But what happened is these kids come back, like the top 5-star kids, and tweet about their experience. And they got a lot of hits. So we presented it to CBS Sports, and we signed a 3-year deal with CBS Sports Network. So we became a national TV game about 4 or 5 years ago. And then after that, I went to New Orleans because they have what they call HBCU colleges, like where Deion Sanders was coaching. So HBCU did an all-star game because a lot of those kids are not exposed to NFL scouts. So the NFL Network televised their game. Well, I was there because I'm friends with like Doug Williams and some of those guys. And we pitched, hey, we're also a minority community that's making a big dent in the National Football League, like what we talked about earlier. And thank God they said, yeah, we want you guys to be the high school game that's on the NFL Network. So we're the only game that the NFL televises with their network. But it's getting to the point where we're getting the very top athletes. And some of the great things about it is Talanoa playing in our game. Penei Sewell, who's with Detroit. I mean, it goes by fast. that kid Chris Olave that's with New Orleans, the receiver. A lot of those kids played in our game. And what it does is not so that we think we want to build the biggest game, but it gets our names out to the national, on a national level. Because the game is played on Friday at 4:00 in Hawaii. It's televised in New York at 9:00. And the halftime show is all about Polynesian dances and culture. It's a way of us celebrating where we are now in the game of football at every level. So the Polynesian Football Hall of Fame is we honor the greats of the past, people that blazed the trail. And then, if you don't make the playoffs, the present stars come there because of the day that we have it. And then, of course, our Polynesian kids that are playing in the game with the non-Polynesian kids are the future. So it's a big production with a lot of moving parts, but it took us a while to get it to this point. It's something that I think we can all be proud of. And I think Luther Ellis's boys played in the game too, who's now playing in the league. A lot of kids that are playing will remember because they go to the PCC, spend the whole day there. They practice at Kahuku for one day out of the week. And it's a great week of celebration of Polynesian football.
So was it you and Ma'a that came up with the idea? I mean, along with the influence of Coach Jones?
Yes, because Ma'a was with me on those trips. I said, Ma, do you want to take this thing on? And Ma said, yeah, let's just take it on. And then all of a sudden, we got a lot of support from some of our great Polynesian players like Kevin Mawai, Olin Kreutz. A lot of those guys all came down there. We got a lot of the support of sponsorship from the unions in Hawaii, a lot of sponsorship from different private companies. Of course, we can't do this thing all by ourselves, without our sponsors. And now being on national TV, bigger sponsors are coming out. So it was so funny, because when we had the dinner, right, me being a Samoan, I grew up in a church. When you do like a family night fundraiser, $20 ticket is like, you can hear your parents complain about a $20 ticket, So when we were meeting, as far as putting the Hall of Fame together, the dinner, and the marketing company that we work with says, we want $2,500 a table of 10. I'm like, so that's $250 a ticket? And they go, yeah. I'm like, this is a Polynesian event, guys. And they go, Jess, do you want this to be a first-class elite event, or do you just want it to be people to come and have fun? I said, of course I want it to be elite. Then you have to treat it like one. I said, I don't think 10 people are going to show up and pay $250 to come eat a dinner, right? They said, just trust us. Sure enough, the first year we had 450 people, and the dinner now is about 1,100 people come to the dinner. And the great thing about it is like our kids that are playing in the NFL, they can't all make it because of the week that we have it. We had it 2 weeks ago, right? Like Talanoa, I told Talanoa, I do not want to see you come to the Polynesian Hall of Fame because that means we're still playing, right? So some of our kids can't make it, but to them, because now the table's $3,000, to them, $3,000 is like $30. So they just call in and they said, hey, Jess, I'm going to get a table. I don't know if I can make it or not, So that's how, and then they ask their family and friends to come sit at their tables. So that's where we're at now with the dinner. And the dinner's first class, everything that we do. To me, that's the most important. The game is also important, but because we played the game on Friday this time, it's usually the game's on Saturday, the dinner is on Friday. But this week, because of the NFL Network, we switched the dates, and that's why I couldn't lead to come to the Niner game, because to me the induction dinner was so important to honor those guys that went in, like Mike Upati went in, Manti Till, and Montague, a guy that played in the late 40s, early 50s. So that was a good class.
So Jesse, my question is a two-part question. Because I'm not a Niner fan, where did the term bang bang come from? I just want to know where that came from. Was it a term from the Niner faithful that someone came up with? Or?
No, it's not. And I have a funny story with that, right? because I don't follow the rap game too much, right? But we have a popular rapper in San Francisco. His name is E40, right? And E40 wrote that song, Bang Bang Niner Gang, right? So I was honestly, one of our private clubs, I was there just getting food, I think it was before the game. I was getting food. And this black guy was getting food right next to me. It's like a buffet thing and he keeps looking at me and I'm looking at him and, he goes like that and I went like this, right? And then I came back out of that private club and we sat in the same seats and I got introduced to him, right, as E40. And I'm thinking, okay, E40, he must be, and they're saying, wow, he's a big time rapper here in the Bay Area. And I'm like, okay, that's good. And then, because we were right behind the bench, guys like Richard Sherman, some of the defensive guys like, hey. So I'm thinking, oh, this guy must carry some weight, And it was funny that game that I met him, it was a Monday night against the Browns, but Roman Reigns also came to that game. So I was just talking to Roman because, I know he's Samoan and my kids are wrestling fans. But then all of a sudden that song came out and E40 asked me to be part of that video. I'm like, oh, sure. So when people ask me now, what did that song? Oh, E40 wrote the song when I heard, in all honesty, when I was trying to get food next to him, I had no idea who he was, but the song is a hit now. What's so funny is you go to Samoa and how Niner fans greet you now. They don't greet you, hey, Jess. They just say bang, bang. So it's a good thing. It's caught on and, our faithfuls, I was telling my wife, I said, I don't know how, because when they come here to LA, they take over the stadium. They take over the stadium here in LA. And then they go to Las Vegas. The Raider fans got a lot of pride. It was like 70-30 over there when I was looking at the crowd, Now, Philadelphia, they restricted the Niner fans from buying the tickets, which is smart. But the fan base is pretty strong right now. So when we played in Mexico, the Niners sent me a week before, because that's part of my job is I do the media work, promoting the game and promoting with our fan, building our fan base. It was unbelievable, man. We were the road team against Arizona, and it was like 70-30. The Niner crowd was more than Arizona, and yet it was Arizona's home game. So I think part of that, too, is the product that we put out there. Even though you don't win it, if you keep taking your shots, the fan base stays strong with you because you're always competitive. And hopefully we can close the deal. People ask me all the time, compare the teams that I played on with this particular team. I said, the talent is similar. We had some great wide receivers. We had some great running backs. We got Christian McCaffrey and Debo and those guys. We had Jerry and John Taylor. I said, the difference is they need to close the deal. They need to close the deal at the end of the day. And I also told Talanoa when I talked to him, I said, Talanoa, you don't have to win 4 Super Bowls like me to have your legacy cemented here. If you win 1 or 2, the Niner fans will go crazy and put you guys in the same level as some of those great teams that I played on, because you put us at 6 Super Bowls and then 7 Super Bowls. One of the biggest accomplishments that we had with my group, with our group, is that when Pittsburgh won their 4, the 49ers had 0 Super Bowls. By the time our generation was done, we were the first team to get to 5. So that's what the fan base appreciates. But like I said, I'm cheering for the Tongan Tiger to get his ring. And I told him, I said, the All-Pro and the Pro Bowl is great. But man, imagine if you take the hardware home. So, he's a good kid, and I'm cheering for all of our kids. We got a lot of Samoans that are playing with the Philadelphia Eagles. We got Juju with Kansas City. So my interest in the game is I'm neutral. Whoever wins, I'm happy for them. But it's nice to see. You had no idea. We had no idea that by this time we're going to have 6 players playing in a Super Bowl game from with Polynesian ancestry.
The last part of my question is, do you have a question for us? Because here in Behind the Lavalava, we like to learn and improve our podcast.
Well, like I said, the reason why I came on is because of the respect that I have for you guys and the service that you provided. I think I know you guys probably do it already, and one of the things that I'm very careful about is people saying, well, we just don't want to be known for football, and I'm aware of that. But, when Troy and I were on the NFL Network, when we celebrated the Asian Pacific Island Week, we talked about there's so many stories of people coming up to me, a Samoan young lady, that say, hey, I went for an interview, and they looked at me and they said, where are you from? I'm from Samoa. Oh, you know Jesse Sapolu? And they tell them, yeah, we know Jesse Sapolu, whether I met him or not. It opens the door to the young women. So what I realize is the reach of football is beyond just being a football player. It helps our young ladies out. If someone applies for a job in Pittsburgh and it's, brown skinned Polynesian, and they say, where you from? Oh, is that where Troy's from? It opens the door for them. Now, and here's the thing. We have a young lady that's with player development with the 49ers. You guys didn't know that. Her brother plays for the Eagles. That's Joe Silmalo's daughter, Jesse Sapolu. So Joe reached out to me, and I emailed our department to reach over to John Lynch and put her name in there. And thank God she got the job 2 years ago. So that's a young lady that's an inspiration for all of us. Maybe even more important than the players, because we're knocking down another wall, and that's something that I'm so proud of. And it's the same way I feel about your podcast. Yeah, you're interviewing myself. Interview Ray Seffel, but I want to hear stories about some of our other people that, because we're so busy with our schedule, that I haven't heard of, that I know I'm going to be proud of learning about them. And who knows, we might connect down the line somewhere, and there's a way that I can help them out, and vice versa type of deal. And I think when you guys do that, or continue to do that, it'll open up your platform and take it to the next level.
Yeah, that's one thing we're proud about our podcast is we highlight everyone from all walks of life. We do try to bring our family members and our parents, or who have made impact in our lives and community, and try to highlight, not because of the reason they're famous or well known of, but their backstory, because that's what our podcast name is about, what's behind that person. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Any last rounds from our Niner faithful, Lemma?
Hey, bang, bang, Niner gang all the way, man. No, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Uncle Jeff, thank you so much for letting me ask you questions. And this has been a wonderful opportunity for me. So thank you so much. Thank you for everything you've done for us.
No, thank you guys, and don't be ashamed of your service to our country. I mean, I know where you guys are coming from. You're Samoans, and you're very humble, but just accept it from the standpoint of how we view what you do. And even at my age, I understand that without what you do, this country wouldn't allow my kids to have their careers that they have now. It's that freedom to go out and try to be the best, or whatever you believe you can be. It's possible because of the freedom that this country affords us to do that. And part of that's because of what you guys fought for. And I'm very thankful for that. And thank you for having me on. And hopefully one day we can do it again,
Yes, sir. Hey, any last rounds from Michael or Johnny?
I was just gonna plug in real quick. I'm a Falcons fan since 1998.
And we lost the Falcons,
Yeah, but I'm still a little burnt that you guys took. They took our offensive coordinator after he lost us the Super Bowl. But I'm real big on all Polynesian players, so I still support players. But I'm a Falcons fan by heart. Rise up.
He was a great offensive coordinator. Everybody thinks, and that's just his mindset. He's so aggressive, and I know people are saying that they should have run the ball when that left tackle. You see, I know the details of that Super Bowl when the left tackle got into a holding situation that knocked you out of the but the other way of looking at it, you had a 28-3 lead and your defense got tired, I thought, in the second half.
Yes,
but
that's exactly what I saw.
They got tired. And I kind of, part of the things when I watch the game, I try to put myself body-wise in a situation. How would I feel in this situation? What's my mental capacity when you see the thing starting to swing, So that's one of the reasons one of the ways I enjoy watching the game. But just a little fact, Kyle Shanahan was a ball boy when I was playing for the Niners because his dad was my coordinator, Mike Shanahan. And we won the Super Bowl with Steve Young throwing 6 touchdown passes. I went to Hawaii to play in the Pro Bowl, and I saw in the news we lost him. He went to Denver. You remember he went to Denver, and the dad won 2 Super Bowls there. So the fact that Kyle is so young, and for us to go to 3 NFC Championship games and 1 Super Bowl, the Niner faithfuls better be careful not letting this guy go because he's a hot commodity out there. It's unfortunate that Alema, it's unfortunate that things blew up on us with our quarterback being hurt. What's so funny is I'm watching the game, right? I see Bosa on the ground, just standing on the sideline trying to get in the game, and he gets a special team player get thrown to his leg. So I'm thinking, are you kidding me? Our best defensive player is gonna be out because of a freak accident? Not even 2 minutes. They showed the tape of them massaging Purdy's hand. I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? We were done. Just like that. We were done. So, but Kyle was a great coordinator for the Falcons, and your quarterback that left was never the same after Kyle left. So
no, he was not even a little bit.
Yeah. So
especially even a few years prior to that too, with what's his name? When Kaepernick came on and replaced Alex Smith, and you guys beat us in the NFC Championship from behind again. Right. But we blame the power outage for that one.
We had to get a defensive stop to beat you guys in Atlanta. Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah, it was pretty sad. I'm not a big fan of the Niners because of that.
But great. I mean, it was funny because 2 of my rings, we beat Cincinnati. So when Cincinnati played KC and we played Philadelphia, I'm like, wow, what if we play Cincinnati again? But it wasn't meant for the cards. But, and that's why people love the game. And that's why we love following our Polynesian kids. It's the number. And the thing about it in Mexico, 40 million people love the game in Mexico compared to when we went. Because the first time I retired, we went there when Alex Smith's rookie year. Remember Alex Smith was a rookie? We played there. And then this is the only other time we went there. It's unbelievable. The Mexican fans over there are crazy, man, about the NFL because they show 2 games on Sunday. They show a Thursday night game and then they show the Monday night game. So how we hold our breath when it's 4th and 1, and we need to get that first down. People are starting to learn that internationally, and the game is starting to grow a lot too. So, I know flag football. Talking about flag football, it's going to become an Olympic sport. So imagine that. Samoa is going to have a flag football team. Going to the Olympics. That the thing that makes me laugh is would they let them play barefooted? Those Samoan kids, whether the grass is wet or not, man, there's almost like they got cleats barefooted. But the game is growing, and we're very thankful for that.
Since Johnny took the time to plug his team, I'm a Lions fan.
Are you a Lions?
Yeah, I'm a Lions fan, and see that
I talked to Gabe at the Polynesian Bowl, Sewell, Bene's dad. I said, Gabe, we were hoping you guys, Detroit wouldn't get in. They were hot. And if they would have gotten in, guess who we would have to play first?
Yeah, the Niners and the Lions. Yeah.
Yeah, they were hot. I mean, that offense was moving, man. Yeah, we were happy to see Seattle.
Yeah.
But I know you're optimistic about next year because they got a young team. I think golf is coming into his own over there, you know.
Yeah.
So, and Panay's doing a great job. I think he's a future All-Pro over there. So,
Oh yeah. So whoever runs your Facebook Polynesian Football Hall of Fame account, when they announced they picked Tua as the Offensive Player of the Year.
Mhm.
I love Tua, but of course I'm a biased Lions fan. And I commented Panay should have won. But
well,
that's
you know,
my Lions fan bias.
for good reason. For good reason. And I'm an offensive lineman. You know, well, we just report what's been voted on, right? We just, we have a committee that votes on that too. I think the fact that they were both alternates. Tua was an alternate and Panay was an alternate, meaning that, they could be the next one to go in if somebody gets hurt, which I think they ended up doing that anyways, because, people that are playing in the Super Bowl are not there. I think the reason Tua got the edge is he was the number one fan vote getter, believe it or not, out of everybody, and then the fact
he was tearing it up too.
He was. And then, in fact, the game he got hurt, one of our own, the Tongan defensive lineman from Cincinnati. I was in Mexico promoting the game at the time. In fact, I walked out of Fox Sports Mexico, and there's this, because it was a Thursday night, and there's this guy standing out there with a Tua jersey. So I told my wife, take my picture with it. And so and then I sent it to Tua's parents. I thought it was pretty neat, in Mexico City, and somebody standing there with a jersey with a Samoan kid's name on it. But that's the night he got hurt. But, we're hoping that he stays healthy because, we got another wave of Polynesian quarterbacks coming. That's pretty darn good. That can help, and our people and everybody's, they say, well, what's wrong with Marcus Mariota? He's not starting it. Here's the way I look at things. If the worst thing in life is to sit on a bench and make $4 million and not hurt your body and do it for 8 to 9 years, that's not a bad life. I'll take it. But Marcus is going to play some. I don't know if he's going to be a sustained starter, but the fact that they can hang on to that position, because if you remember, our African-American counterparts took a long time for them to come into that position. So we got some high school kids coming that are pretty good. There's a kid that's going to Tennessee that's 6'6".
Yep.
Nico Yamalaba. Right. And I think DJ is going to rejuvenate his career at Oregon State. So hopefully he comes back and becomes maybe a first, second, or third round draft choice, hopefully. Because we have to cheer for our kids at the end of the day until the week we play each other, It's so funny because Ngalu and Diane, Tua's parents, were spending a lot of time with us. They came to the Niner Hotel and hung out with us. And, I'm thinking, man, this is not an easy week for me because, I'm good friends with the parents and here we are, sporting our Niner stuff. And I know they're worried because Tua had a concussion already. But as soon as the game was over and they came here to play the Chargers, we were all Miami fans. So those are the kind of things that I have to maneuver, still being involved with the NFL and the Polynesian Hall of Fame, and try to cheer on our kids and stuff. But I appreciate what you guys are doing and pray for those kids, because at the end of the day, like I said, the better we do, the more we can help even our female, young Samoan girls, young ladies that want to pursue other careers because of the influence that we have on the field. So we feel good about that.
Well, we appreciate you very much. And before we go, we also like to comment on 15-year career in a position that takes the most damage over there in the trenches. But you look pretty dang good, Jesse. Like, really, you don't look like you aged much, man. You skin looking nice and glowing, and man, in a hard position.
Hey, Milford, just for men, just lost a lot of cost because I stopped coloring my hair. What was funny, here's a funny thing, Mike, with the documentary, right? They've been filming it for almost 2 years, right? So some of my interviews are more dark hair in the beginning part of it. I said to my wife, I'm like, see, this is what happens when we do it for a long time. Now I don't color my hair anymore. Now people won't think. but it's all in fun. She goes, no, then the people know that, you're starting to accept your A's but I appreciate it. Sometimes I become forgetful, and I'm thinking, serious? Is this from playing football? But, it's just accept the fact that you're 60 and, and do the best you can. And, but appreciate it. I try to do my best when I was playing, and we're cheering for our kids to do their best. And hopefully we have faith in the way we brought them up, that they'll come back and help our community the best they can.
And listening to you tonight too, it ties in a lot with what the late coach McKittrick was talking about, when you being fundamentally sound. As coaches are, anybody who's good at any skill, they know the fundamentals matter, and your foundation in the Samoa way, and you holding on and truly being rooted, really testifies of how you became so great and solid. And I think that's one thing that a lot of listeners will take away from this episode.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate you guys. And one thing before I leave, I know we have access to masses of people, but just know one thing, that whether you change people because you have access to masses of people, or you change one life at a time, it's still the same. You're changing a life. So appreciate what you guys do. Keep it up. And like I said, we'll see you again.
Thank you, Uncle.
Thank you.
Let's be behind the lava.
Bang yan po.